Aloha! You're listening to KNKRLP 96.1 FM Kohala. I'm Michál Anna, and this is Intuitive Talk Story. And I'm so excited to have today with me my special guest, Miss Terra Sutton, dear colleague, friend, community member. We've gotten to work together in the healing arts. She's been in the healing realm for quite some time and is quite a practitioner and teacher and educator in her own right. And I am so glad to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here again. It's been so fun in the past being here with you, and we never know what's going to come out. So I'm excited to see where we go today together, and yeah, let's do it.
Yes. And before we get started in the classic intuitive story, we're just going to drop in for a minute and take a breath and bring ourselves all here, present now, to drop into our heart, our mind, breathe, ground, connect to the earth, be aware of your connection to source, God of your heart, however you express that. And just take some nice breaths that I'm present here to engage or listen or both from my heart, centered place, sourcing the flow, flowing the source. And gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We come into this sacred field to intuitively talk from our hearts in this moment now. Mahalo. So, what is alive these days? We kind of touched a small moment on what do you want to talk about? And we were talking about all the false things going on out there, all the ways that we can get misdirected from truth, from our center, from feeling present now, and get pulled into some other place. So what are your thoughts on some of that, Terra?
Well, it was, it was a wonderful tickler when we actually briefly talked about that last week and said, what do you think? And then, we had a little time. So, false light. And I spent a little time going inside about that. I've had a little experience myself. And I think we should kind of break down what is false light, and when you look it up on the internet, there's actually something new to find out about what false light is, which is fascinating. So there's a new definition. False light is actually being used for, instead of defamation, when somebody slanders somebody on social media, it's actually putting false information about somebody out in the world of, social media when you don't know the person. And the difference between defamation is it's not necessarily ruining your reputation, but it's injuring your well-being. And anyway, I just want to address that first, because if anybody goes out there and says, well, what the heck is false light? And you do a little Google search, you will find this new definition that are many court cases about. But I think what we want to focus on here is more false light path, and what is it and where does it come from?
Oh, I like what you just said, though, Terra, about, I think that actually translates really well, because I find that it's just all one big giant metaphor. So the false light that you're speaking of is the same false light, anything that misrepresents the truth. That's really a very clear definition. Anything misrepresenting the truth. And then you get into, well, what's the truth? I mean, what is the truth? So I had this fascinating discussion yesterday, and let me see if this gives us kind of a framework. I was, sharing with a client because they were asking about, well, is it this path or is it this path? Do I have to do it this way or do I have to do it this way? And I was like, wow, so you're putting them in different rooms. So it was around the Christ path and is everything energy and vibration? And I said, well, they're not separate. You're putting them in two different rooms. And if you looked at that like a circle, let's have a pie. There's a circle, it's pie slices. Okay. In each one, you're in the center, and you could pick any door, and they all go into that pie slice of rooms. And each one's a different path. Okay. So all of those doors, it's not that you have to just, if you go above that, you can see, well, there's a big circle inside all the doors, a golden circle that rolls through all the doors. It circles through all of them. And that's the truth, this golden thread of truth that rolls through all things, all paths, all religions, all forms, everything has a thread of truth within it. Our job is to discern and decipher that thread of truth and connect the dots into the circle of life, right? So you don't have to pick one. It's not like, oh, I'm on this, that we actually get, now we're attached again, because now I'm attached to identifying to something specific instead of identifying, well, to just God, source. My heart is with God in all ways, in all forms, in all energy, we are energy, and it is vibration, and we're also Christic, and. So there's a thread of truth, but each one of those doors also has a whole muck of untruth. They each have a whole bunch of gush and slush and mud, and you have to find that circle. The circle runs through each room, but there's only like one part of it running through the room, right? The rest of the room is gunky. But there's a thread, there's that circle of light that's through all things. And that's what we're, I think, touching on is like, what is the truth, the absolute, that which is undeniable, that which is omnipotent, that which is ever present, that cannot be broken, that cannot be aired, that has no falsity to it. So in each of those rooms, honestly, they're each a false light path. All those rooms are false paths because none of them have the whole gig.
Hallelujah. We can just end the show now.
No.
That's the end. You've just spoiled it for everybody.
Oh,
Spoiler
come
alert.
on.
It's all, yeah. No, it's really great. That's, that I believe is where we're walking to, right?
Yeah.
If we have our eyes open, if we're exposed to all the different things, if we open a door and we buy it and we just drink the Kool-Aid of whatever door yeah, great. I love this door. Like drinking the Kool-Aid. Yes, let's do it. That's the way. This is definitely the right way. I can feel it, right? And every time you open a door, it feels, well, not every single time, but a lot of times you can open a door and go, yes, this is great. Here's my people. Right? And here's all the beliefs that I can get behind. Right? And I think so long as we are in, like we've opened a door to a piece of pie and we're in the realm of all the beliefs that are congruent with that space, then we're still slightly separate from what you're saying. When you step up and you look down, there's a whole the through thread is the golden light of creation, or whatever you want to call it. Any time we're in a room that has a set of beliefs or ideals or something that's rigid and construct based, we're a little bit separate from the oneness of creation, right? So yeah.
I like what you're saying, and I agree. I know I always jump ahead. So it is a journey, and the journey, I've dived into why I feel that way. Let me preface is because I have done that. I have dived deeply into many rooms, and I've looked for the thread. I look for the thread. I'm like, ooh, where's the thread? And I'm finding the truth. And what is the truth? And my whole journey has been really dedicated to diving in the room and finding the truth. That pretty much sums up a lot of my path. And so I now understand it to be that which I'm sharing. And that does come from living the room. Mm-hmm. Living the room first. You have to embody and understand. It's like dance. Like I was teaching the children today. And, you got to get the feet first. It's always get the feet first. You can't do all the big moves, but there's steps. And it's literally get the feet first, then add your body, then add your arms, then maybe your head. So there's a process. So we have to be able to embody it before we can go out and solo and just be creative and just get, pull from all the things that we know. So it's like we're collecting in the Earth School. We're learning about all the different ways of beingness. And we're seeing that a lot of things have been distorted. And that's kind of what I'm picking up on is that I've been looking for the distortions personally in my journey. I think I've been really focused on finding the hole in the room. Like, where's the pink elephant? I'm going to call him out. I think that's been a big part of my gig. So it's like I'm seeing how we can get really we can get distracted so much by these other things in the room. It's not necessarily that they're bad things even in the room. Sometimes they're just other things, right? And it's just that it's not all pure. There's some distortion. And sometimes what a distortion does is just cause like a little leak, right? Or a siphon, or maybe the faucet's just running always. It's kind of like that. Like just a little bit of energy might be seeping out somewhere else that it doesn't necessarily need to go, but maybe I just don't know it. I've been hooked up to many things in my journey that I didn't know until I knew it. I've gone down paths that I thought, wow, why did I go down that path? Jeez. Because I guess I had to learn. So, we go wherever we go. We learn wherever we learn. There's no judgment, but I think it's all taking everything with unattached and amused is kind of in my life theme. So the more unattached we are, the more we can try to look for that golden thread, the more fun it is, I think. For it has been for myself, I should say.
Yeah. And if you can give yourself a big hug along the way and a big deal of like compassion and forgiveness and acceptance for that path, just being on a journey towards whatever that truth. I mean, I'm kind of allergic to that word at this point too. Just for the last 4 years, truth. I mean, come on.
Right. What is truth anymore?
What is truth anyway? But I think to be more clear about that is the journey into presence and love and compassion and connectivity to like the source of creative. And that can be called anything, in different people's existences. And so that journey is, we're dipping in and out of, at least here's an idea. We're dipping in and out of a false light life all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and where does that start? And I think that like we couldn't eventually get to false light paths, and we'll come back to that, unless we had some sense of, there had to have been a moment in our life, in our personal experience, that allowed us to live a deceived life, or a deceived moment, or a deceived feeling, or a deceived. And that's kind of the basis of false light, is a deception kind of based on shopping the idea of light and spirituality. So we have that, and I can see how we can have a personal, like, I think we should talk about it. What are the personal experiences that we have? Like, break it all the way down to like, wow, I could have a moment or a thing or something, an experience, and that's my own personal experience of my story to myself, that's allowing myself to have separation or deception even to myself. And then there's relationships and how we actually conversate and exchange with others. Then we have the manifestation in our communities and groups. And then we have greater groups, like, say, our governments. And then we have the human race, let's call it the globe. And then we have, maybe beyond that, like just the level of energetics is behind all of that. And then we have these like interconnected arrows that go between all those things, right? So forward and backwards through the space. So from personal to global to energetic and back, and all the different shades thereof.
I love it. And that's a great concept. I love it. And what came into my mind was to kind of describe that was, for myself, I have studied many different cultures, and I am a Latina. I'm Spanish, Filipino, Apache, Toltec, Tomi, Native American. I'm kind of a lot of things. I'm all of you. I've also studied lots of cultures, and I studied lots of dance and music and different formats, and also spirituality. I've been on the path since I was a little tiny girl, looking for all the things, and speaking in light language and tongue since I was 10, and trying to find the thing, the truth, the golden thread. And I often went and thought, oh, they have it. And I wanted they know the thing, and they've got it. They've got the thing, and then I'm like, they don't know the thing. They don't know more than I know. Oh, geez. Okay, and then again, they may have it, and see, so but I learned as I was going that, and I realized my own culture. There was things in my own culture that have been passed down that were beautiful and had the thing, but then also I realized why some of those distortions were coming from as well, through my ancestral wounding, through all the different traumas that have come through my lineage. So those distortions are what, now another way to break that down on a personal level, those distortions create, just like I'm no longer, it's like not 100% anymore. You're not getting the 100% info, the direct truth. It's gotten watered down. It's like when you play that telephone game, it goes around the circle and now you're getting a whole different sentence. That's kind of what's happening with all of us. We've been, so like none of our cultures still have it intact, like the whole thing. Somewhere along the line, it got taken or battled out or traumatized or war, or, like when you look at, I've been working deeply in Africa. Colonization has really done a number. You've got colonization, then you've got the Muslim religion, which not the religion itself, but my feeling is blood sacrifice and animal sacrifice for prayer is a falsity. I do not believe in killing for prayer. I do not believe that blood sacrifice for prayer is in the light. I see that as a falsity, that we don't need to, it actually, to me, inverts your prayer. It makes you to kill an animal for your prayer is literally like in me inverting your prayer. Like you just did all this great stuff and now I'm going to kill something, which to me doesn't make any sense. They're also dealing with, they still remove the clitoris of women and the clitoris, and, just male circumcision, but female circumcision is still alive and well in the nation I was working in. So, these things create huge amounts of trauma and the separation and fragmentation. So then a culture that has all this richness then also has a lot of separation and fragmentation embedded in it that then gets perpetuated out of those things. And then you have poverty, and then you have conditions that people live in, and you have social systems, and then you have economic systems that are unfair and create injustice and create resources over here and no resources over here. And so, now we get into a more social system. You have a hierarchical system that starts to take place based on what? How much money you have, your social status, who are you? And now we get, education. Now we have an entire system that's based on a hierarchy of money and power. And that in and of itself is the grandest false system. And it's the one we've all been living in. We've all been living in this artificial system that's upside down based on power instead of based on love and communion, respect, mutual integrity, respect for each other and for your neighbor and the people. The Hawaiian people live in that regard, live in that manner. So shout out Hawaii, yes. Hawaii is doing that and doing their best to bring the land back. And of course, there's healing that needs to happen there too. Every culture is healing. And that's why that's why I always say, if we could just admit we're all traumatized and we could get right down to it and pick out these falsities and get to the solid truths of what's really happening and really see that we're all part of the same pie. We're all just sitting in different pieces and it's the one good golden thread.
Yeah, and that every nation, every governance, every people, every tribe has, and I don't know about every, I don't study religions very well, but every religion I've bumped across also has so much beauty in it. And culturally even,
so much beauty.
So much beauty.
So much.
And then also
we've been traumatized.
Other piece that comes in, and it is, I like what you said, the power over, it's like versus power from within, right? So it's the power over system, and that's been present on the planet in all walks of life and nations for a long
But we're really at this place where we get to change it is kind of the cool part, and why we even get to talk about this at this point, because we're here in this moment where anyone listening to the show right now, you are awake enough that you want to make a difference. You want to create something new. You're ready to embark to the next part of yourself in some format. And that your mana is powerful in just seeing a new way, seeing the truth, being the truth, vibing the truth, flowing the source. That's all that's asked really of any of us. And the more we can, spark one another and help each other dismantle that which is not intact and integrity for our being, the better.
And it comes down to how is it that I can develop my own tool of deciphering the difference? How is it that I become clear enough to be able to see or feel when somebody says something to me, when an organization says something to me, when anything that is even news introduced to me?
Mm-hmm.
How can I develop my tools so that I am clear within and can and receive information and go, ooh, okay, that's in light and love and wholeness, and that feels a little restricted and maybe of separation. And if we can just devote a little bit more of our days to just coming back into our beingness and into our heart, but also just into our entire being of presence, that is our guide, because it's going to be tricky. It's not just going to be tricky. It has been tricky forever. It continues to be tricky, and it comes in all forms. And that's why I was kind of excited, like, oh gosh, let's talk about false light, because it can come in. It can come in a sense of beauty. It can come in a beautiful religion that you share, that speak of these ideals of love. They speak of these ideals of community and speak of these ideals of, all those things, right? Honor. And then at the same time, it's bringing in these other pieces. And if we haven't, first and foremost, developed ourselves as a tool of clarity and ability, then we don't know the difference. We can't pick it apart in that moment, because it is potentially an inversion or a false light path, or, a form of deception in some way.
Absolutely. And what you're hitting on is discernment, like being able to trust our discernment. And where does discernment come from? I was having a great talk with Gabe, if you guys catch that show. And we were talking about judgment, discernment, observation. We had a very in-depth discussion around it. And not thinking of judging ourselves, right? But discerning and not judging something either. You're not judging. It's not making something bad. Nothing is bad. Like, there's no judgment on any of this stuff. We've all experienced kind of all of it, if you think of it that way. Each of us as beings, we're all in Earth school, and we're all experiencing everything. So there's no judgment on anything you really do, actually, unless you're harming something. It's back to those, like the 10 commandments, like begin to morals or truths, like don't kill, don't hurt each other, don't harm others, but whatever you're doing to yourself ultimately is your journey, kind of thing. And you get into other things and you start harming others. But we are discerning what is good for us and what is okay for us. But here's what I see a lot and have gotten to really bear deep witness to. Well, what drives beings? What drives the people? What drives us? Desire does. So our desire for something is actually what gets us. So we desire a piece of something we see inside of a system. We're like, wow, that thing's super cool. I want to be that. I want to do that. I want to have that. I want to embody that, whatever that might be. The desire, and this is, I'm so grateful because this is, great to not have this feeling. My gosh. But to let this go is deep, right? To our desire of the things we think we want. And so those desires usually come from our wounding, where we're trying to still fill something up because we haven't had it met yet. See, so we're like, well, I'm trying to be in my center, but I don't even know what that means. Well, because I'm still feeling wounded, and I still feel like, gosh, I just wish I was loved, or I wish so-and-so would talk to me, or why doesn't my dad ever call me, or wasn't my mom? I'm still thinking about a lot of things, right? So I want things, and I think if I do that thing over there, it's going to fill it. It's going to make that thing over here go away. If I can just be that, then that'll give it to me, or whatever, right? So I've watched this a lot. People trying to fill it up with the thing. Like, that thing over there isn't going to fill it up. That's not going to fill it up. You have to be full inside yourself. So this is why I go back to tools and meditation, because we are learning to fill up ourselves and meet our own needs and heal our own wounding, so that you don't have desire as your primary runner, that you can now go Without desire happening, guess what happens? Discernment. Because then you can see it. You can see it for what it is. It doesn't have the allure. It's not shiny with the film on it of like, ooh, isn't that like the thing? Oh my God, I want to be like her, or whatever they do, right? Whatever one might do. It's a shiny, and or him, and look at what he da-da. And so that's what Terra was referring to too. False light is often very fun and shiny. And I think Lucifer, if I just want to bring in that, like they made a show called Lucifer, which I thought was a good thing they did in one way, because they showed you Lucifer's fun. He's got a club, he's got a dance club, he's out partying, he's handsome, he's sexy. He's like, hey, whatever you want, whatever you want, I'll get it for you.
In general.
Yeah, in general. He's like, whatever you need, I'll get it for you. Look at my suit, sexy thing. He's whatever sexy thing is for you. That's Lucifer. He is the epitome of the sexy thing. Whatever it is for you, that's your Lucifer. We each have our own tailored Lucifer, if I might add. I've had to face mine. And yeah, it's whatever that is. It's literally, and I'm being metaphoric here. I'm not saying actual Lucifer. I'm just saying the Luciferian, the false Luciferian is a false light path in and of itself. Lucifer is false light. He is the morning star. He is the light bearer. He comes forward as the light. Like he's like, hey, I'm the answer. I have it. That's why you want to come to me. I mean, hello.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Lucifer is all about it. So it's shiny. It's shiny. See what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And who doesn't love shiny?
Right?
I mean, come on.
Jeez, we've all been swept up by shiny. I've had my dealings with shiny. Let me tell you.
Oh my gosh. I want to bring in something kind of like down the rabbit hole, like to the side. And that was, I watched a show, a TV series called The Wheel of Time. And in that, it's so brilliant the way that it depicts and makes it so obvious, right? They actually have a sect that's represented in The Wheel of Time called, well, let's start at the beginning. Well, so we won't get to the beginning of time or anything, but in this show, it shows the children of light. Now, the children of light were a group that came out of after like 100 years of war. And then this guy wrote a book called The Way of the Light. And because it had been such a difficult time on Earth for 100 years, people were hungry for this idea of light, right? And to live in the light. So he wrote a book, The Way of the Light. Then, as a group of people took that on and started traveling around and sharing the word of the light. Over time, it became a militarized, semi-religious, fanatical group that wore white robes, and they were called the White Cloaks. And they rode around. They rode around seeking to squelch all evil. And the means by which they were doing this was to execute anybody that might actually fall into the category of evil. And anybody that had any channeling capacity was considered of the dark. So this is like, if anybody wants to watch something that makes it completely obvious and blaring of a false light path, that is like just a beautiful example. And in the name of the light, they would go around executing people at will.
Which is so incredibly false. And that is what's happened here. I mean,
but it's how many times we've seen it here, how many times?
Many times. Back in the Middle Ages, when that was deeply happening, that was actually very reminiscent of what you're describing. I think I've seen clips of this show, not the whole thing, but they end up they're in a time, what I remember of it, is that the part I saw was that then it's really like you have women's groups and temples, because honestly, the men have been so inverted that they're really warring most of the time. And the only men that are really in an upright place are those that are considered waters to the women, which means they have returned themselves to their upright format and have found balance with the goddess and the god within themselves. And I thought the show was pretty poignant because, well, gosh, in fact, Terra and I co-facilitated a retreat together called Sacred Union Within, which is about this concept of marriage within, of coming together of your divine feminine, divine masculine, and loving ourselves. And that's kind of what I was referring to also. And in order to do that, we are healing our mother wounding, our father wounding, our ancestral wounding. And then so those two things can be in wholeness and then come together in a balanced format. But with that, so I love what you're bringing up, Terra. You're saying that these obvious false dark paths are really poignant. At the same time, now you can see how it can also become less. It can be more covert at times.
Oh, it can be super subtle. Yeah. Yeah.
And like we were saying, very shiny and seductive, and can lure you in all sorts of ways. So one that I'm really seeing in this moment, if we get into tech, let's get into tech a little bit, because you were talking about what I was even listening to someone. There's a lot of people being impersonated, first off. So that was what you were touching on, why there's a new definition on the internet, because on the internet, big, famous people, or, like people like Joe Dispenza, Pam Gregory, these people who are doing talks in these realms, now there's stuff being put out that's their voice, a picture of them, and it's not them. And so this is a great example of how false light information has been passed down. It's a bulk of their work in the narrative, but I don't know what the percentage is. I'm just going to make one up. Let's say 90% of it is the truth of what their work is. 10% is some insertion of an idea. That is a programmed idea to lead people astray, to think that that is the way it is. That is in essence what has happened to us in the past, but we did it with books. Our Bible, for instance, is not the real Bible. If you're reading the King James Bible, you're not reading the original edition. And a lot is left out. A lot of important things are left out. Once you become discerning, right, you can take what you know is truth and we can leave the rest. If we could all get to that place, right, then we can really together create this evolved village, discerning together what is the truth. We've all been, everything was distorted like it is doing right now in front of us. That already happened. So we're in the midst of finding the 90% and sifting through that 10% that's junk and that's literally trying to program us some other direction, which really is leading you to give up your sovereignty in some capacity.
Yeah. So I think we need to come into some really tangible examples for everybody. More. All the different areas where we might run into this. And, okay, so I have a personal story. Okay. So when I was 5, I lived in Vermont before we moved to Hawaii. And when I was 5, my dad, he was very friendly and gregarious, and he would meet people traveling in the world, and he would invite them over. Come over, have dinner with us, stay over for the night, and tell us your stories, right? So this happened frequently, and sometimes it was like a Japanese cyclist, and we learned about Japan, and he got to talk about, joinery and all those things. And one day, my dad brought home 4 people in white robes. And I saw them from across this long porch to the other side. And I saw them come up the stairs. And I thought, uh-oh, not those people. Anybody but those people, not them. So my dad, unbeknownst to me, had drank some Kool-Aid and had brought these people in white robes home. And they took over our home.
Not actual Kool-Aid.
Not actual Kool-Aid, of course not. We were hippies. We didn't eat Kool-Aid. No, but that he had taken in whatever, I didn't know at the time because I was 5, but he had taken in whatever they were saying, and they said, come home with us and stay with us for a little bit. So they stayed, and they, in the name of Jesus Christ, proceeded to burn our books, especially books that had pictures of animals in it. So all of my favorite books, the Encyclopedia of Animals, was my favorite set. It was an entire encyclopedia of separate books. Had to burn all of them. My dad, my mom, My brother, who's 2 years older than me, they were all in the bandwagon. Everybody was doing the things that the people in white robes were saying to do. And I was the only one that was not into it. And I was like, guys, this is not right. This is not okay. These not okay. No, we cannot do this. But I was the smallest person in the room. So they proceeded to have meetings at our house around the return of Jesus Christ, the second coming, or I don't even know what it was. I was 5, but it was they would gather because Jesus Christ was coming. And then, make a short story of the whole thing. My entire family left me to go with the people in white robes, so that they were following the path of the return of Jesus Christ. And I was asked, my dad asked me, would you like to come with us? And I said, are you going to go with them? And he said, yes. I said, I'm not going. So they all left on their path with the white robes in the name of Jesus Christ.
And who did they leave you with?
Luckily, my grandmother was visiting from Connecticut that day, and she thought something really strange was happening. So she called my aunt, who was 8 months pregnant, and lived 45 minutes away, almost an hour, and said, there's something really weird happening. You have to come. And so my aunt came. And as my aunt's arriving in the driveway, my dad and my parents, my mom, my brother, and the people in white robes get in our Volkswagen bus. Hold on a second. This is serious. And yeah, they get in the Volkswagen bus and drive away. So I was left with family. Luckily, that was very good. But the point is, the path in the name of Jesus Christ was totally separate and completely, like, my aunt later on, maybe, I'm 50 now, so maybe 8 years ago we had lunch, and she goes, I want to tell you what that was like. She goes, she showed up and she goes, it looked like everybody was in a trance. But such a deep trance, everybody was in it, right? It was like they opened the door, and that pie-shaped idea of give everything up for the idea of Jesus Christ coming back couldn't, in my opinion, couldn't be more false. I looked around and I looked at these men and women in white robes with their ideas and their invitations and requests and in the name of Jesus, and I was knowing in my heart and my being that the true Christic energy had nothing to do with these people and what they were bringing to our family.
Wow, that is very heavy for a small person to be seeing at such a small age, right? To be witnessing your entire family being taken by an illusion, so to speak, a falsity that's masquerading as something that's supposed to be of the light that we, what the Christ represents, but using, how many things have we seen done using in the name of God, in the name of Christ, that are falsities. And for you to recognize that as a child and be seeing that and have them then go away. And did they come back? I mean, what happened?
Yes, they did. They did come back eventually. Yes, they did leave, and they didn't know when they were coming back, nor did they make any effort of telling me that they might come back. But eventually, later on in my life, I actually heard the full story because I was old enough to hear the story from an adult perspective. And they did end up driving around the Northeast and doing all these things. And they basically gave these people all their money and they drove them around. And not that we didn't have a lot of money, but like whatever we had, they said we need it for this mission. And so my parents were like, yes, So eventually my mom, who was in her own right trying to figure out how to keep the family together when this whole thing was happening, she realized how loony this was. Like she was actually not in it with as much as my dad was. And she figured out, she called triage, and she found somebody, family members, some religious intervention happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's what happened. A friend of my mom's family, who was part of the church, came to meet them with the group of white robes and sat down in the circle and somehow broke the illusion for my dad. And he finally saw it. And yeah.
Well, and that's interesting because we talk again back to the pie and the truth, because there's truth in everything. So these white robe people you're describing are masquerading as a piece of truth. Like they're presenting an illusion that your dad was latching onto, per se. But then it's interesting you brought in people from your family's religion or church that had a piece of their truth. And that truth was able to dispel the illusion, which I love because I always believe the truth will set you free. And you brought up what is being really Christic, that the truth cannot be broken, that it has the power to dispel lies. It has the power to break the illusion and to bring us back to wholeness. And, obviously I know your family and know you were together and known you for many years. So I knew they came back, but yes, if as a listener, you might not know what happened and that everything turned out okay, obviously, and everybody learned. And I'm sure there's obviously many stories, as we all have, it continued, I'm sure, as far as understanding and, like you said, unweaving this story, which is why we brought it in, that it's like it takes that one moment can set in a whole lifetime of unpacking, right? And that we can, these falsities, and that's kind of what's happened, for all of us, these falsities have gotten put in this, like these white robes had maybe 10% of the truth going on and 90% falsity. But we can get swept up by what we think. That small bit of truth just gets you allured, and off someone goes into some false path. That's, I kind of like call them the snake oil, selling the snake oil path. Yeah, it'll be healed. Just rub it on, you'll be fine. And a lot of things are that. Back to the shiny. They look real shiny on the outside. They look real appealing, and yet. That's not necessarily the way we want to go. And so, yeah, we're going to take a quick little break here, and we'll come back and explore this some more. We'll be right back with Intuitive Talk Story.
If you've ever wanted to learn how to play the ukulele or need one to practice on, now is the time. Ukulele are available to borrow at all public libraries on Hawaii Island. Each ukulele kit includes one ukulele, a battery-powered tuner, and a carrying case. Patrons can use the instrument for a 3-week period at no cost. One ukulele per card. The instruments are provided and supported by the Music for Life Foundation and Jake Shimabukuro. For more information, call the North Kohala branch of the Hawaii Public Library, 889-6655. That's 889-6655. Now's the time to start strumming.
Hey, Auntie Lonnie, how's it? Have you checked out the North Kohala Tool Library?
No, what is it?
Oh, they have all kinds of stuff you can borrow, from construction tools to hobby and crafting tools, even some party hosting stuff, things you wouldn't have even thought of as tools. You can search their online inventory of over 500 tools.
Whoa, how does it work?
It's a non-profit. Memberships are available to all Kohala residents.
Does it cost to check out tools?
Most of the tools are completely free to check out.
Whoa, that's awesome. Who's responsible for all this?
Everybody there is a volunteer, and they always need more help.
Okay, I'm going to go check it out, but what's their website?
You can Google North Kohala Tool Library or go to nktoollibrary.org. They have all the info on there, including their location, hours, membership info, donation info, newsletter sign up, and even a form to fill out to become a volunteer.
Whoa, I'm going to go check it out now. Mahalo.
Okay, we're back in Intuitive Talk Story. I'm Michál Anna, and I'm here having an amazing conversation with Terra Sutton. And we were just touching on snake oil, falsities, and things that kind of look shiny or appear a certain way, but then turn out to be something completely different. And then I think this also brings up discernment, right? Our discernment and what that brings up. So, Terra, tell us a little more about that experience for you.
I think probably what I would say, I think we're back to discernment. We've been talking a lot about discernment today, and I do believe that's the golden nugget of all of this, is that even in that example when I was 5, and it was a very extreme example, even in that example, and like you're saying, there's a lot I had to continually unpack in my life in that moment when I made that choice. But then my family actually left me there. There's a lot for me to unpack emotionally. However, that decision to honor my discernment in the moment, because I could see that it wasn't of wholeness and it wasn't of love and it wasn't of that. And to honor my own choice about that was a really powerful place for me inside, even though it brought, in that immediate environment, it brought an unsavory experience or something that felt hard for me in relationship to my family. However, I would say, everybody out there, if we're facing one of those opportunities, to hold to your truth and your own discernment towards love and unity, do it. It's worth it. It doesn't matter if things fall apart. You know, if things fall apart because you can see and you're using discernment and you are close to wholeness and love, and the things that fall apart, if you speak for them, they should fall apart. You know, not should, but that are not of love fall apart. Now, in my family's case, there was still a lot of love there for me. But what they were in the moment committed to was not of that connection and not of that purity. And so they took another path. But when they realized it was not actually of love, they broke it apart. It broke apart for them. So then they came back into their own self, and they came back into...
And the veil was
love.
lifted really off their eyes as well, which you brought that in when you said somehow the family members or the counselor that was coming from the other church or what have you was able to lift the spell, was able to show your dad, look, this isn't what it is, like the man behind the curtain kind of thing. It's a lot of things are. They're puppet shows. They're, you know, it's like dun, dun, a song and dance out here. But what's behind the curtain? The Wizard of Oz, great example of like this false light. That's what that Wizard of Oz, right? You know, it looks like, I'm almighty. And then it's just the guy behind the thing, you know, pulling a string. And so for us to reveal the truth and be willing to look at what's behind the curtain and see that, is it really truth? Does it act like what it presents? Is it really being what it says it is? What I understand about a lot of falsities in general is, I think, you know, is that they love it loves trickery, it loves separation. Falsity loves to confuse, to separate. It doesn't love transparency. It doesn't love honesty. It doesn't love to like look things in the eye. It likes to hide. It likes the shadows. It likes to keep things confused and like, you know, and special in certain ways, you know, and like there's a lot of ways to trick someone. An ego, pumping their ego, inflating their oh, aren't you special, and aren't you this, and the white robe, but I love white myself. Who doesn't love a good white robe?
I love
but
white
but again, we can take, it's not the white robe itself. It's white robes are great. We could all wear white robes. And it's what intention or what thing we hold. And the first clue there feels to me like and it's my clue all the time and stuff, is there hierarchy, right? So back to that, is hierarchy involved? Because if there's hierarchy there, it's not in a unity system. It's not based in love. Is it based in power, or is it based in love?
Yeah. Or is it based in a power over system versus power from inside?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Where is that coming from, and how are we navigating our power, and where are we giving our power to? And that's what this is kind of about, is not giving our power to false light or to false paths, and being discerning about owning our sovereignty, owning our own power, and being clear with to me, I would frame it as direct connect to source, the direct, go straight to the source, no middleman, no snake oil, just sourcing the flow in ourselves, being connected to God, and letting that be our wisdom, our guide, our internal compass, and letting that be the primary focus, and matching all things against that discernment of what does it feel like to be in my highest, best self, connected to life. Terra, I just really also want to really honor you for sharing such a vulnerable story on the air, and sharing that with everybody, and the processy that you've gone through a little bit in that. And maybe that would be, if you're willing to share, being something that you've had to unpack and move through. What did that set up, and how do you think you've moved through that?
Thank you for asking me that. And yeah, it feels like it is a vulnerable place. It is a very big memory for not just myself, but my family as well. So I know that we all live here in this town. It was definitely a big event for our nuclear family. And coming out of that, I would say, just because of our ages, my brother and I, it's a very impressionable time. And though I was very clear in this one area, like I was very clear, like those people I'm not comfortable with them, and they are not of wholeness and love. I was very clear about that. The second I laid eyes on them, I didn't have to even experience their acts, like you're saying. Is their act in alignment? I didn't have to, I just saw them and I knew. Then they came in and their acts didn't match their words in my experience. So yeah, how did we recover from that? I would say it's been a lifetime of unpackaging the many stories that can come out of those moments that are so big. So that means for me, unpacking the experience of abandonment, unpacking the confused stories. These are kind of I would say, the confused story that I told myself for a little while was, if I speak my truth, and if I am saying what is of connectivity and love, I lose my people because of that. If I, so that story is not just mine. I know that. That's shared with others too. So I guess what I would say is to come back to that moment and say, yeah, there might be some loss around you in the immediate situation. But the overall value of knowing oneself and knowing love, I'm saying, I'm using the word love generally, but I'm really talking about that essential connection to God and that love. Knowing that place in yourself, I think, is very powerful and gave me the strength to unpackage all the other stories that I had created in that moment, right? Like, I can't count on my family. I'm going to have to take care of myself no matter what. That was one of my stories as a young person. So all those stories that I created in that moment, there was many, gave me certain levels of strength. Like, I was always very independent. But I was that way to even be able to see that moment. So I came out also very independent. But that solidified it for me. That said, oh, you're on your own, kid. Like, you're gonna have to figure this out because your parents are, like,
figuring it out as well.
They're figuring it out in their own way. But yeah. So
it's a deep dive into the child self, and we've talked a lot, and you and I do work together about, do you find that going into the inner childscape, and I like to talk a lot about pulling that inner child out of that memory and moving them out of that framework to remember and kind of show, like, what now as an adult, that, well, gosh, they were just in their own illusion. It had nothing to do with you. Whereas as a child, we take it pretty personal. And like you said, it lays in abandonment patterns, etc. But when we go back in and we're able to see it from a bird's eye view and not take it personal, but see these other fellow travelers, our parents that aren't really our parents, but are when they are, but they aren't. They're just fellow travelers in this earth game. And, well, gosh, they just got tricked as well. And that's kind of what we're all here doing, is learning how to decipher, discern, and how to move through this game, discerning what is the truth, what is that golden thread that links us all together, and really embody that freedom, if that so be your choosing. We're not all here for the same thing. We're not all choosing the same thing. So yeah, it's quite the ride that way. So, we're out of time. We could keep going forever here, but this has been such a meaningful and deep sharing. Thank you for your vulnerability. Much love to the Ohana, and we love you all. And thank you for sharing here today.
Thank you so much for having me with you here today and hearing these stories, and also just talk storying about the entire game. I appreciate that. And a shout out to my family for being amazing humans. And I really love being on the journey with them. And I welcome all of the challenges and events and love in every spectrum.
Yes. Oh, totally. So with that, be discerning. May we all stay the course and travel the golden thread of life, and keep on. So aloha, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Ahui ho.